You were never supposed to be here. Everyone in this building knows it. The room gets smaller and cheaper every single time you walk into it. She poured hot coffee down Jade's back and left. That was her first mistake. Her last one was not knowing who Jade was married to. The Harmon Crest Hotel rose 40 stories above downtown Atlanta, all black glass and steel, the kind of building that made people feel small on purpose. Senators held fundraisers here. Tech billionaires signed acquisition papers in the private dining rooms on the 32nd floor. The carpets alone cost more than most people's cars. It was the crown jewel of Harmon Collective, a hospitality empire spanning 38 properties across 11 states. And at the top of that empire sat one man. But we'll get to him. Right now, let's talk about Jade. Jade Mercer was 29 years old, with a master's degree in hospitality operations from Cornell and 4 years of consulting experience that had turned around 3 failing hotel divisions before she was 26. She could have walked into any executive suite in the industry and named her salary. She didn't. 6 months ago, she applied for a staff-level event support role at the Harmon Crest, no title, no authority, $11 above minimum wage, a black polo shirt, and a laminated name tag that read, Jadem. Nobody asked why. Nobody knew enough to ask. Jade believed something most people in her position would never consider, that you cannot fix what you refuse to feel. She wanted to know what it was like to be invisible inside the machine she was preparing to lead, not from a quarterly report, not from an exit interview summary, but from the inside, from the floor, from the part of the building that guests never see. Her husband understood. He told her to take as long as she needed. So Jade showed up every morning at 5:45. She parked in the employee lot behind the loading dock. She wore no jewelry except her wedding band, which she tucked on a chain inside her collar. She carried her lunch in a zip-top bag. She used the service entrance. Nobody knew, not the front desk staff, not the kitchen crew, not the valets, not the housekeeping supervisor who asked Jade to help fold linens 3 weeks ago when 2 workers called in sick, and definitely not Kristen Polson. Kristen was the regional events director, 42 years old, ash blonde hair always pinned tight enough to look painful, heels she wore like weapons, clicking down every hallway like a metronome counting down to something bad. To the guests, Kristen was exceptional, a warm handshake, perfect recall, the kind of woman who sent thank you cards within 48 hours and remembered your coffee order 6 months later. To the staff, she was something else entirely. If you were white, Kristen was exacting but fair. She pushed hard, but she said please. She said good work. She kept a professional distance that still felt human. If you were black or brown, the distance closed, and not in a good way. It started with a look that lasted 1 second too long, comments about your communication style, your appearance, whether you really understood the standard the hotel was trying to maintain. Then it escalated. She had a favorite phrase she used whenever someone went to HR. She would pull the general manager, a man named Derek Holt, into his office and say it with the same bored confidence every time, they're just too sensitive. Derek was 51, khaki pants every single day, a foam stress ball on his desk shaped like a football. He'd managed the Harmon Crest for 7 years. He knew about Kristen, of course he did. 3 formal complaints, 2 employees who resigned within weeks of filing them, 1 written warning that Kristen had successfully appealed by pointing to her revenue numbers. Her client retention rate was the best in the Southeast region. Derek didn't like confrontation. The complaints stayed in a folder. The folder stayed in a filing cabinet. The cabinet stayed locked. Then there was Priya. Priya Rao was 23 years old, a junior banquet server who had been at the hotel for 7 months. She was quiet and observant in the way only people who have been ignored long enough become. She noticed everything, which staff Kristen complimented, which staff Kristen looked through, which ones she dismantled in front of an audience. 3 weeks before the gala, Priya started keeping her phone in her apron pocket during every shift, not to scroll, not to text. She had a folder on her phone labeled Receipts. It was growing fast. Tonight was the Harmon Collective Annual Corporate Gala, a Fortune 100 client, 100 guests, a contract worth more than most people would earn in a decade. Every person on that staff was about to collide in a way none of them had prepared for. The banquet hall smelled like stress and silver polish. Iron tablecloths, fresh flowers, the kind of precision that only happens when people are terrified. Jade was stationed at the far end of the hall working on centerpieces. White peonies, dark greenery, tall vases that caught the chandelier light and threw small rainbows across the ceiling. She'd built 72 of them since 6 in the morning. Each one was identical. Each one was exact. She was good at this. She had always been good at this. Then Kristen walked in. Her heels hit the marble in that counting down rhythm. Every head in the room tilted slightly, not to look, nobody dared look directly, just to track, to know where she was. Kristen moved to the first table, a white server named Bryce's. She lifted a wine glass, held it to the light, set it down softly. Perfect. Nice work, Bryce. Bryce nodded and moved on. Kristen turned and walked straight toward Jade's section. Same setup, same glasses, same silverware, same napkin fold. Jade had checked it twice. Kristen lifted a glass, turned it under the light, and set it down hard enough to make the silverware rattle. This is sloppy. Jade's hands went still. There's a smudge on the rim. The napkin fold is off. And these flowers, Kristen pulled a peony from the vase and held it up like she was presenting evidence. The stem is bent. Do you care about quality, or is that just not something you people tend to prioritize? The words hit the room like something physical. 2 servers nearby stopped moving. One studied the floor. The other turned and walked away. Jade breathed, slow and controlled. I'll redo the arrangement, Miss Polson. You'll redo the entire table. And when you're done, I need you in the back kitchen. They need 60 pounds of ice moved to the service bar. Ice duty, manual labor. Jade had a coordinator title. She was supposed to be managing logistics. She nodded. She started pulling apart the centerpiece she had spent 20 minutes building. Kristen watched for exactly 3 seconds, then turned on her heel and clicked away. Her perfume hung in the air long after she was gone, heavy and sweet and suffocating. That was 10 in the morning. By noon, it got worse. The seating chart had been finalized 4 days ago. Jade had built it herself, cross-referencing the client's full guest list, dietary flags, VIP tier preferences, and 2 separate rounds of client revision. It had taken her 6 hours. Derek had signed off on it personally. Sometime between 11 and noon, someone opened the shared file and rearranged 40% of the tables. No note, no email, no explanation. Jade found out when Derek called her into his office. He was behind his desk, stress ball in hand, blinds half closed. Jade, we have a serious problem. The seating chart doesn't match the client's VIP list. If this isn't corrected in the next 90 minutes, tonight is a disaster. Mr. Holt, I finalized that file on Monday. You approved it yourself. But if you check the revision history. The door opened behind her. Kristen walked in like the room had been waiting for her. Derek, I heard there's a seating issue. Her voice was smooth, concerned, helpful. Derek looked relieved in the way weak people look relieved when someone else walks in to take over. Yeah, Jade's chart has errors, significant ones. Kristen tilted her head at Jade, the look a teacher gives a child who keeps getting the same answer wrong. Oh, Jade, did you mix up the assignments again? Again, as if it had happened before. It hadn't, not once. I didn't mix anything up. The file was edited after I saved it. Kristen laughed, short and dismissive, like the idea was too small to take seriously. Jade, nobody else works the seating charts. That's your job. I shouldn't have to audit your work on top of everything I'm already managing. She turned to Derek. I'll just fix it myself. It's fine. Derek nodded. He didn't look at the revision history. He didn't open the file. Jade, let Kristen handle the chart. You go help the kitchen with setup. Kitchen setup, washing trays, stacking plates, staying out of sight. Jade looked at Derek. She looked at Kristen. She saw exactly what was happening. She nodded. Yes, sir. She walked out. Priya was waiting in the hallway, a tray of water glasses in her hands, eyes locked on Jade's face. I saw her do it, Priya whispered. 11:15. She was at the computer in the office. She changed at least 10 tables, then closed the file and walked out like nothing happened. Jade stopped walking. You saw her? I was getting paper from the supply closet. She didn't notice me. Jade closed her eyes, let the air out slow. Thank you, Priya. You need to report this right now. This is sabotage. I know what it is. Then why aren't you, not yet? Priya stared at her. What does that mean? Jade opened her eyes. Something in them had shifted, not anger, not fear, something quieter, something that had been waiting a long time. It means not yet. She stepped into the stairwell. The fire door closed behind her with a heavy click. She dialed. It rang once. Hey. His voice was low and warm, the kind of voice that made a cold concrete stairwell feel smaller and safer. Hey. Jade leaned against the wall. Her shoulders dropped for the first time all day. It's getting worse. Tell me. She sabotaged the seating chart. Blamed it on me in front of Derek. He didn't even check, just sent me to wash dishes. A pause. And this morning she told the room she can't breathe the same air as me. Silence, not the empty kind, the kind that means someone is listening with everything they have. Jade. His voice was quiet and certain. I'm coming to the hotel tonight. The board inspection. I know. When I walk through those doors, I am not looking away. Not from anything. Not tonight. Jade pressed the phone against her ear. She could hear him breathing. Just get through the next few hours, he said. Can you do that? She stood up straight, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Yeah, I can do that. That's my girl. She hung up. 10 seconds in the stairwell. Then she walked back out into the noise. 2 hours before the gala, Kristen poured the coffee. It happened in the corridor outside the main banquet hall. Jade was carrying a folded tablecloth under one arm, moving toward the linen station. Kristen came from the opposite direction, holding a ceramic mug, steam rising from the rim. She stopped directly in Jade's path. You moved the podium back to the right side. Jade had moved it after confirming in writing with the client's event planner that the right side was correct. She had the email. She had the timestamp. The client confirmed the right side in writing. Miss Polson, I have the email. I told you left. The client overrides internal preference. Something shifted in Kristen's face, not anger exactly, something colder. Do you know what your problem is? She stepped closer. You don't know your place. You have never known your place. And I have spent 6 months trying to figure out why someone like you is even in this building. Someone like me, Jade said. Not a question, a receipt. Kristen tilted the mug, slowly, deliberately. The coffee poured down Jade's back in a wide, scalding stripe. Jade didn't move. She didn't flinch. She stood completely still while the heat spread across her skin and the liquid soaked through her polo and ran down to her waistband. Kristen set the mug on a side table like she'd just finished a sip. Clean yourself up and stay out of the main hall when guests arrive. The last thing this event needs is you at the front. She looked Jade up and down one final time. You look exactly like what you are. She walked away. Dead silence in the corridor. One junior server stood frozen 8 feet away, eyes wide. Kristen rounded the corner, gone. Jade stood there for a long moment, coffee dripping from the hem of her shirt, the smell of it sharp and bitter in the air around her. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, read the last message on the screen, * leaving now. See you soon, * she put the phone away. She walked to the coat check room near the service entrance and went inside. Narrow, no windows, a single fluorescent light that buzzed overhead, wire hangers on a metal rack that smelled like rust. She stood there alone. Through the open door, she could see the banquet hall glowing with chandelier light. She could hear the string quartet warming up. She could smell the peonies from the centerpieces she had built that morning, the ones Kristen had called sloppy. She hung an empty hanger on the rack. The wire scraped the bar. She waited. The black SUV turned into the Harmon Crest's front circle. At 6:47, Nate Mercer stepped out. 61, dark suit cut like it was made for exactly this moment. He moved the way men move when they own the room before they enter it, unhurried, certain, completely still inside. The head of security, a man named Ray Foster, stepped forward. Good evening, Chairman Mercer. Welcome to the Harmon Crest. The words went through Ray's radio, through every earpiece in the building, through the front desk, through the service corridor, through Derek Holt's office, where an assistant knocked twice and said 2 words that made Derek stand up so fast his chair rolled into the wall. He's here. Derek grabbed his jacket. His hands were shaking. He made them into fists. In the banquet hall, Kristen heard it through the event radio, a crackle of static, then Ray's voice. Chairman Mercer, main entrance, all positions. Kristen's eyes went wide. She smoothed her hair, crushed a breath mint between her teeth, straightened her blazer. This was her moment. She moved fast through the service corridor and burst into the lobby just as Derek arrived from the opposite hall. They exchanged one look, 2 people united by the same desperate need to perform, then turned toward the entrance together. Nate was standing in the center of the lobby, Ray beside him, 2 security officers behind. He was scanning the space slowly, the marble, the flowers, the chandeliers. His face was unreadable. Kristen stepped forward first, bright smile, extended hand, voice pitched warm and rehearsed. Chairman Mercer, what an incredible honor. I'm Kristen Polson, Regional Events Director. I oversee tonight's gala, and I have to say, everything is running beautifully. We are so thrilled. Nate looked at her hand. He didn't take it. His eyes moved past her, past Derek, past the reception desk, down the hallway, toward the service corridor, toward the narrow room near the entrance with no windows and one buzzing light. Jade was stepping out. She'd heard the radios. She'd heard the name. She stood in the hallway in her coffee-stained polo, name tag slightly crooked, hands still raw from hours of work. Nate saw her. Something moved across his face. Not anger, not yet, something slower, deeper, like watching a fracture travel across glass before the whole thing goes. He walked past Kristen, past Derek, past both security officers, who stepped aside without a word. He crossed the lobby in long, steady strides. He reached Jade. He stopped. He looked at her shirt, the dark stain across the back, the dried streaks along her collar, the smell of coffee and industrial cleaner. He put his arm around her gently, like she was the only person in the building. What happened? His voice was quiet, but in the silence of that lobby, it moved like thunder. Jade looked up at him. For the first time all day, something cracked just slightly, a tremor at the corner of her mouth, a brightness in her eyes. She blinked it away before it fell. Long day. Tell me. Behind them, Kristen stood frozen. Her hand still hung in the air where Nate had ignored it. Her smile was still on her face, rigid now, plastic, a mask that forgot to come off. Her eyes moved between Nate and Jade, the arm around her shoulder, the closeness, the way he looked at her. Then the name hit. Mercer. Chairman Mercer. Jade Mercer. The color drained from Kristen's face so fast it was visible. Derek's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No sound. Nate turned his head and looked directly at Ray. I want to know everything that happened to my wife today. Every detail. And I want security footage from this entire building pulled right now. The word wife landed in the lobby like a detonation. Kristen took one step back. Her heel caught the edge of a marble tile and she stumbled. She caught herself on the reception desk. Jade looked at her, calm and still, and for the first time all day she spoke without being asked. Priya has it on video. The security office was gray walls, 3 monitors, 2 chairs. It smelled like old coffee and electrical wiring. Nate stood in the center, arms folded, silent. Priya walked in holding her phone steady. She opened the folder. She pressed play. The first clip, Kristen's voice in the banquet hall, clear and contemptuous. I can't breathe the same air as this. The room gets dirtier every time she walks in. Nate's jaw tightened. The second clip, Kristen holding the peony up like evidence. Is that just not something you people prioritize? The HR director, a woman named Camille Reyes, covered her mouth. The third clip, Kristen watching Jade drag the podium across the marble stage alone, 80 pounds, Kristen's arms crossed, Kristen smiling. Then the final video, the corridor, the coffee mug, Kristen tilting it slowly, the liquid pouring down Jade's back in a long, deliberate stripe, Jade not moving, Kristen picking up the mug and walking away. The room was silent except for the hum of the monitors. Nate spoke one sentence. Bring her in. Kristen walked through the door 2 minutes later, chin up, hands trembling. She tried a smile. Chairman Mercer, I want you to understand, tonight's event is completely under control. Whatever misunderstanding, sit down, he said. I just watched 4 videos of you harassing, humiliating, and physically assaulting a staff member. I want your explanation. Choose carefully. The smile collapsed. I was. The coffee was an accident. She's exaggerating. I didn't know she was what? You're talking about my wife. He leaned forward. So if she wasn't my wife, this would be acceptable. Kristen's mouth opened. Nothing came out. That's what I thought. He turned to Camille. Effective immediately, suspended without pay, pending full investigation. I want every complaint ever filed against her pulled from records, every single one. And I want her off this property in 10 minutes. Kristen's composure broke apart. Please. 6 years. I have given this company 6 years. People make mistakes. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Every single day. Ray opened the door. 2 officers were waiting. Kristen stood on unsteady legs. She walked between them across the marble lobby and through the glass doors without looking back. The lobby staff watched in silence. Nate wasn't finished. Where is Derek Holt? Derek was in his office, stress ball in both hands. How many complaints were filed against Kristen Polson? Derek swallowed. A few. How many? 3 formal. Maybe more that didn't make it to documentation. And what did you do with them? Derek stared at his desk. That's your answer? Nate nodded. Administrative leave, effective now. Formal notice from HR by morning. Derek set the stress ball down. Nate turned back one last time. Next time someone tells you they're being mistreated, listen. It costs nothing. He walked back to the security office. Priya was still standing there. He stopped and extended his hand. What you did took courage. You have my word, no retaliation, not now, not ever. Priya shook it, firm grip, steady eyes. Then Nate walked down the hallway to the coat check closet. Jade was waiting. He took her hand. They walked together through the service corridor, past the kitchen, past the banquet hall shimmering with golden light and string music and peonies she had arranged that morning. Neither said a word. They didn't need to. The investigation started at 7 the next morning. Within 48 hours, a team of investigators was set up on the 3rd floor. They started with Priya. She sat across from them in her server uniform, hands folded, voice steady, and told them everything. Then she handed over her phone. The investigators watched every video twice. After Priya, they interviewed 11 more current staff, former staff, people who had quit without explanation. A bellman named Darius Cole said Kristen once told him he was too casual for the lobby, then gave the same greeting style a glowing review when a white colleague did it a week later. A housekeeper named Tanya Webb said Kristen refused to enter a service elevator if Tanya was already inside. A former line cook named Marcus Ford described how Kristen walked into the kitchen one afternoon and announced in front of everyone that something in there smelled unprofessional while looking directly at the 2 black cooks on the line. 3 formal complaints, 11 informal reports, for resignations linked directly to Kristen's conduct, all documented, all ignored. Derek Holt's signature was on 3 of the dismissal memos. His handwriting appeared on notes that read, "Resolved. No further action required." The pattern stretched back nearly 4 years. On day 5, the video went public. Priya posted the coffee clip to her personal account with Jade's permission and no caption. The footage spoke for itself. 32 hours later, 14 million views. Atlanta News covered it first, then national outlets, then cable panels, then opinion columns. Headlines spread everywhere: hotel manager pours coffee on employee, turns out she's the chairman's wife. Kristen's name trended for 4 consecutive days. Former colleagues issued public statements. Her professional network collapsed inside a week. On day 9, she released a prepared apology through a crisis management firm: polished, careful, empty. The top comment under every repost was identical: she's not sorry she did it. She's sorry she got caught. On day 13, Harmon Collective released its official statement. Kristen Polson. Terminated for cause: no severance, no reference letter, no rehire eligibility at any property in the company. Derek Holt, demoted, reassigned to a 60-room property in a small market 3 states away, salary reduced, authority stripped. Both faced civil exposure. Jade filed a formal complaint with the EEOC. The company's legal team cooperated fully. On day 21, Kristen was served with a civil lawsuit. Workplace harassment, racial discrimination, hostile work environment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Her attorney advised her to settle. She settled. The ripple went beyond one hotel. Nate called a company-wide leadership meeting: every general manager, every regional director, every HR lead, a mandatory video conference, 3 hours long. He stood in front of the camera in his office, no notes, no teleprompter. What happened at the Harmon Crest was not an isolated incident. It was a systemic failure, a failure of leadership, a failure of accountability. It happened because people in positions of authority chose silence over action. He paused. That ends today. Harmon Collective announced a full policy overhaul, mandatory bias training at every level, from executive leadership to housekeeping, an anonymous reporting hotline run by an independent third party. A zero-tolerance discrimination policy with immediate investigation protocols. And one more thing, Nate created a new position, Vice President of Employee Experience. He offered it to Jade. She didn't answer right away. She sat in their living room that evening in her jeans, the chain with her wedding ring still around her neck, and turned it over the same way she turned every decision, carefully, deliberately, from every angle. Then she said yes. Not for the title, not for the office, but because she knew what it felt like to stand in a coat closet with the door open, watching an entire building pretend nothing was wrong, and she was done pretending. 6 months later, Jade Mercer sat behind a wide desk on the 16th floor of Harmon Collective headquarters. Atlanta skyline through the window, morning light on glass towers, her Cornell diploma on the wall, the first time it had been out of a box in 2 years. On her desk, a framed photo of her and Nate, a small succulent from Priya given on Jade's first day in the new role, and a printed copy of the company's updated anti-discrimination policy, 51 pages, every word reviewed by Jade herself. In her first 4 months, she visited 22 of the company's 38 properties. She sat in break rooms. She ate in staff cafeterias. She listened, not from a conference line, not from a dashboard, but face to face. She heard stories that sounded exactly like hers, different names, different cities, same silence. She built a reporting system that didn't route through the managers who caused the problems, anonymous, protected, independent. In 5 months, 204 reports were filed across the company, 91 investigations opened, 17 employees terminated. 4 properties replaced their entire management teams. The anonymous hotline received its first call on a Wednesday morning. A young woman's voice, shaking, determined, "I don't know if anyone will actually do something, but I need to say this out loud." Someone did something. Priya Rao was promoted to event coordinator at the Harmon Crest, full title, full salary, full benefits. She still kept her phone in her apron pocket during shifts, old habit, but the folder on it was empty now. She didn't need it anymore. Tanya Webb, the housekeeper who had been refused elevator space, received a formal written apology from the company and 18 months of back pay. She cried when the letter arrived, not because of the money, because it said clearly, without qualification, "We believe you." Darius Cole, the bellman, was offered reinstatement. He declined. He'd moved on, but he accepted the apology. He said it was the first time in 3 years that anyone had admitted out loud that he'd done nothing wrong. Kristen Polson never worked in hospitality again. Her name became a case study, not the kind anyone wanted to be. She left Atlanta, deleted her accounts, and disappeared into the kind of silence she used to force on other people. Derek Holt managed a 62-room property outside of Roanoke, quietly, without authority. Whether he changed or simply learned to fear consequences, nobody could say. Nate continued to lead the company, but something shifted in how he led. He started every board meeting with the same question: what are we not seeing? It became a company tradition, a reminder that the most dangerous problems are the ones leadership chooses not to look at. And Jade kept one wire hanger in her desk drawer from the coat check closet, not as a trophy, as a reminder, of the buzzing fluorescent light, the smell of rust and mothballs, the sound of Kristen's heels clicking away while the banquet hall glowed gold on the other side of the door. She kept it because she never wanted to become someone who forgot what the floor felt like. Most people who face what Jade faced don't have a husband who owns the building. They just have a folder on their phone and the hope that someone, somewhere, is paying attention. The question isn't whether this happens. The question is who's watching when it does.